Yeah, I'm pretty sure the YouTube video for Tuesday is going to be something to the effect of Valheim is my life now.
At this point, just about everyone's heard about Valheim, an open-world survival game set in the Viking world of the dead. Now, I was a little slow to pick up the game at first, but I've since logged 40 in-game hours since I downloaded it last week. Today, I'm here to answer the question, is it worth your $20? I'm Brad from Last Call Gaming. Let's tap into it. Valheim has taken the gaming community by storm and has taken up the majority of my life over the past week. I mean, seriously, I've fallen very behind editing videos because I'll log in for a few minutes to check something, and before I know it, several hours have passed, I've killed a handful of trolls, built a mead hall, and I've somehow forgotten to eat in-game and in real life. The game sucks you in. It's that simple. After launching on February 2nd, 2021, Valheim quickly shot to the top of the charts on Steam with well over 340,000 concurrent players within 2 weeks. Combined with a staggering 3 million downloads at the time of this recording, it's now the second most played game on Steam, passing Dota 2 and coming close behind CSGO. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Valheim might have had the most successful launch in Steam history. And it's easy to see why. With a $20 price tag and a mesmerizingly small 1GB download size, the barrier for entry into the game is relatively small, and the returns in terms of gameplay are pretty hard to pass up. Well into the first day, I'd felt like I'd already gotten more than my money's worth. The game boot up is fairly simple, and reminiscent of older RPGs. There's a fairly simple character creation system with a good bit of customization. Even despite the relatively low resolution graphics, you can really get a unique character and shape one in your own image. At least, I think I got pretty close. You then have an option to join an online server or create one. This is where my first big complaint comes with the game. It took my friends and I way too long to get into the same game together. The interface is finicky and is much harder to actually make work in-game than it should be. And at the end of the day, we just had to invite each other or join game from the Steam menu and we were in. It's simple and silly, but does require you to Alt-Tab out and take a few extra steps. Not a big problem, but a noticeable one. When you do get dropped into a server, you're dropped into a massive procedurally generated world, with each server being topographically different. And I cannot emphasize enough just how big the world actually is. The first time I opened up the map and zoomed out just to see how little I'd explored, my head spun a little. Your first spawn is at an altar, where a strange but wise Norse bird gives you helpful advice to start your journey. Hugin will continue to appear throughout your game to give you tips as you discover new gameplay elements and make progress towards the end goal. It's not annoying or intrusive and feels pretty natural, especially as a way of teaching you the basic gameplay. Every action you perform, from running and jumping to woodcutting and fighting, has an ability level which levels up the more you perform the action. These actions are tied to stamina though, so you can't just sprint all over the world to level it up immediately. It feels gradual, and it's a satisfying reward every time you're alerted that you've leveled up. Your end goal is fairly straightforward on the surface. There are 5 bosses in 5 different regions you must find, summon, fight, defeat, and bring their trophies back to your starting altar in order to gain their power. Each boss acts as a gate to the next new biome, and will provide you with abilities and materials to step up your game and grant you access to a more advanced civilization. Your civilization will become the most necessary part of your success, and likely take up the majority of your gameplay. I'm sure there will be speedrunners that eventually prove me wrong, but I end up spending so much time just improving my base, making changes, and seeing how complicated I can make things. This translates to spending a lot of time acquiring resources and doing basic chores around camp like maintaining food supplies and keeping the fires burning. That's where having friends on one server comes in handy. Each person has a goal, and you end up working together to accomplish much bigger goals that would otherwise take one person days to do. The construction element is really where this game hits its stride for me. There's a seemingly infinite palette of building elements, crafting stations, furniture, etc. to make your world whatever you want it to be. You unlock more technology by simply exploring and interacting with the world, collecting as you go. You can even terraform to fit the world to your vision. The construction system could be a little tricky to control, but I find myself tunnel visioning frequently after I get a fun idea. As a result, I've been undertaking bigger and bigger tasks to push the envelope to see how wild and ornate I can make my buildings. In terms of combat, I'm somewhere between the first and second bosses, so I've only seen a fraction of what the game has to offer. But there are your typical callbacks to Norse mythology. You have forest-dwelling dwarfs who come solo or in packs, massive trolls, sea serpents, and leaders of the wilderness. They come in various shapes, sizes, levels, and levels of aggression, and when you get caught out, they can cause you a lot of grief and inconvenience. Again, having your friends for support really makes the whole process a lot more fun. You can also draw aggro from regular animals like boars and wolves. They hurt less, but can really mess your day up in the wrong situation. There are an abundance of weapons, tools, and shields you can craft that become more effective and durable through upgrades. Simply discovering new materials can help you make big leaps in terms of progression. For example, if you manage to defeat the first boss early, you can craft a pickaxe, and the world opens up dramatically within the first few hours of the game. So there are a ton of positives to Valheim, but there are a few negative things I found that could be a holdup for some and are definitely worth mentioning. The graphics and textures are clearly where this game budgeted in order to get the file size so small. Don't get me wrong, I think the game is beautiful, and for how big of a world you're exploring with the number of weather patterns and environmental changes, the hit on graphics is worth it for me, but might not be for some. On the topic of weather, it's a very nice touch that exposed materials degrade over time. But for how simple the game reads that exposure, you may find yourself repairing things often, and when you're in the middle of massive projects, it can be a little frustrating if you haven't been able to build a roof yet. There are also some weather patterns like dense fog and the new moon cycle that, while detailed, make the game almost impossible to play based on visibility, or lack thereof. I found it best to just sleep these cycles away and start fresh the next day if you can. Not a big issue, but something that could be really frustrating for some. The one major issue I've found, however, is that the game is kind of unstable. I've had several major game crashes on my fairly beefy PC that have wiped out maybe 20 minutes of progress depending on my last autosave location. This really sucks when it happens to you, but it seems to be fairly rare for how many hours I've logged, and the devs are updating frequently, so I expect this to be fixed pretty soon. In the meantime, there are console commands that allow you to save manually. Simply press F5 and type save and enter, and your game will be saved where you are. I recommend doing this frequently, especially if you're working on something big. Be careful where you save though, because you could find yourself logging back in surrounded by enemies. All of that aside, overall I think Valheim is hugely fun. It's a great, if not dangerous, time sink that can be whatever you want it to be. Explore, build, fight, meme, whatever. The world is completely your Viking oyster. In my opinion, it's definitely worth the $20 price tag. Valheim is available right now on Steam. But I want to know what you think. Do you have Valheim? Are you thinking about buying it? Are you having as much fun as me? Have you had any of the same problems I have, or ones that I didn't mention? Let me know down in the comments. If you like this video, make sure to throw it a like down below, and if you want to see more content, consider subscribing to the channel. I stream regularly and upload several videos a week. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time, cheers.
Soon may the weathermen come to bring us sugar and tea.